Hello and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Amy McNee with Informatica, and today I have the pleasure of talking with Jen Mezzio, Global HR Data Officer at First Citizens Bank. So Jen, welcome. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me, Amy. I'm excited.
All right, well, we can't have a conversation about data without having a conversation about everyone's favorite topic these days, which is AI. So I wanted to just get your perspective on how you think AI is going to drive value in your organization. And knowing where you're coming from, I'm certain that this isn't a new concept for you all, but it's certainly now in the context of all of the buzz and hype.
Yeah. It's definitely going to change us in good ways and bad ways, in my opinion. I saw a meme that said, AI won't take your job, but somebody using it will. So the reality is that whether you want to bring it in today or bring it in next year as a corporation, you're most likely should be bringing it in if you want to stay competitive. If you want to, take your workforce and upskill them into different areas, bringing AI into the layers like our call centers, places like that. When I think about where it's beneficial is in that specific scenario of a call center. When we think about call centers, we think about so much private information. Our client call centers, our employee from our HR service centers, and usually those places have a lot of turnaround. Those specific departments have a lot of turnaround. So when you think about having to train individuals on what is, personal information, making sure it's secure, there's a lot of risk that comes along with it. Bringing in AI and allowing AI to kind of take that burden off, become that privacy layer where we can build in those business rules, where we can have AI continue to learn and adapt, I think is going to help organizations immensely. Then we could take and upskill that workforce into other things that we know is needed across the organization. So I think it's not a if, it's a more of a when that organizations need to think about bringing in AI.
Yeah, I do see a lot of people who are getting a lot of pressure from boards and executive level. They want to have an AI story, so they're kind of like, I have a technology and now I'm looking for a use case. I think it's always better if you look at the use cases you have and ask, like, where can AI actually improve the efficiency of this or make it better, faster, cheaper, something like that. But I love that quote, by the way, that you talked about AI isn't going to take your job, but the person who's using it, will. So I think
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to actually talk about with regard to AI, both generally and specifically on women. So both, like, I'd like your opinion generally, but also like when we talk about um, the females in the workforce. I'm curious on your thoughts. What do you think are some new opportunities and some concerns? So both new opportunities and concerns that AI can represents.
Yeah. So opportunity wise, I see really good opportunities training, for training women in the workforce, allowing them to take on these new skills that are out there. We have I forget what it was, but it was a very low number of women who are AI developers, and a very low number of women teaching AI courses. With that AI development comes a homogeneous lens if we don't have that diversity. So I think we really need that diverse lens at the table, because when people do bring in these products or use these products, we don't want it to slant one way towards one population. And I think allowing women the opportunity for these skills, and I see them all the time on LinkedIn. I see so many places advertising, people getting certifications, et cetera. I think there's so much opportunity out there. And that brings me to my second point of it almost levels the playing field for women. We know that we don't have a level playing field. I feel like we still have a little bit of a ways to go, but these opportunities, being able to take these courses, these skills, having such a need out there for a population and knowing that we need that diversity within it, I think is a huge plus for women.
I think it really does bridge the gap now. Like you need to understand the problem you're trying to solve, the business application of it. And then to some extent, sometimes creating the code becomes a little bit easier. It's not always perfect, which you can get from generative AI, but it does get you started in a way that sort of shortens the time to learn it. So
Yeah.
I do think I agree with you. I think it is a great leveler now and going forward.
Yeah, and I think to your other question is what might be some of the downfalls. I think it is that unfortunately now we currently have a homogeneous population developing AI. And so we as women, as we go in, and if AI is being used in, let's say, our healthcare, or let's say these other areas, we're a little bit at a disadvantage because our specific data sets or use cases might not be fully represented. And again, to me, that as a woman and in data, that is a big concern.
Mhm. I do like that, the point that you made too is data is important, how you train the models, because look, AI learns on what it's given, right? But I think the other thing that you talked about is if we're only teaching people the concepts around AI with people who look the same and come from the same places, there's like this inherent learning bias as well that could have an impact. And I never really thought about that in terms of the learning process for this kind of next generation of technology. So I think it's an important observation on your part, and I think something we need to think more about. I don't know if you have any ideas on, like, how do we get more people interested in this? How do we get more people to want to join the party, so to speak, on AI?
Yeah, I think in general, looking at getting more women just in STEM is important. Women and girls, right? Getting more of our female population interested in this in STEM is the first step. There's still, I know that we could all probably talk about points in our careers and struggles that we have, even from in our more senior roles now. And it can be intimidating. It can really be intimidating walking into a field that is a male dominated field. And so, how do we open those doors and create more support for women and more opportunities for women to come in and do these these STEM type roles? I think that that's where it starts. It starts with maybe mentoring out to our younger, our schools, our girls, and creating more of that comfort around it. And so they can understand what their part would be, not necessarily the intimidation of going into a more male dominated field. And then creating, the mentorships around, once you get in this field, how, what is it that you might encounter and how can you navigate and how can, other women best support you, and creating these opportunities, also training HR and our recruiters into ensuring that we are hiring a diverse workforce in these fields. I mean, numbers honestly matter when it comes to having a different lens in things like data and tech.
I thought you just said something that really kind of spurred a thought for me, which is especially in HR, because one of the things that HR can do is also create opportunities for people to connect in companies.
Mhm.
And I think too, some of this is people don't even think that they're capable of something until they are. And I think maybe this is something we can do better within our cultures, is people who are in these roles bringing other people along and making sure, like, proactively going out and looking for people that they can have as a mentee to bring along in these, particularly females or other underrepresented minorities who historically haven't had a big presence in tech, and in particular with this new kind of AI uh, phenomena that we're, that we're looking at. But I do think that there's some responsibility that sits with all of us to make sure that we're training the next generation of people, and we need to think about opportunities to bring them together across all organizations, or all groups within one organization. So it is something that we can think about. How do we connect people across a diverse org? So anyway, that was a good thought on that. Okay, so believe it or not, we are almost at the end of our time together. It always goes by really fast.
It does.
So I want to give you an opportunity. Any last advice that you would give to maximize the value from data in AI, or even talk a little bit about what success looks like for a CDO? Any
Yeah.
advice there?
Yeah, it would be to be realistic. I know generative AI, even though it's been around, AI has been around for a while. It's kind of branded differently, looks differently, being used differently. It is still the new shiny penny, and I think people may rush to bring it in. Garbage in, garbage out. AI can't run on a shaky foundation. So in order to be successful, really being realistic of, are we ready for this? We want to bring it on, but what does maturity look like? So current state, where are we today? And if we want to bring it on, what do we need to do in order to make sure it's successful? And that might be doing the tedious work of the data governance and the data cleansing and looking at our defects and our quality, because again, you can't have accurate AI on inaccurate data. So being realistic and then having the flexibility that, we're going to bring it in, but we might have a V1 or a V2 or a V3, right? It's not going to be perfect coming out of the gate. These things take time to mature. And I know Chat GPT has made it look easy, but they also have that little disclaimer on their website that says, hey, some of our information might not be accurate. And so we want to make sure that if we're an organization and we're basing our business decisions on this information, that we really do want it as accurate as possible.
And then I did want to give you an opportunity to, you and I've talked a little bit about like the CDO role and the differences in the definition of CDO across different organizations. But, from your perspective, I would like to hear a little bit, just as we close, on what do you think success looks like for CDO role? We are capturing more of it than ever before. It's more diverse than it's ever been before. There's more risk associated with it before. There's penalties that are measured in millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for some companies. So what is the kind of parting thought and advice that you might give CDOs or new CDOs?
Yeah, I would say you can't be everywhere and you can't know everything. So again, we have CDOs of different flavors that are going to be in different organizations with different backgrounds. As a CDO, you're not going to know everything. You can't be in the client data and then in the finance data and the HR data. You need to know who you can trust to be in the client data and the finance data. You need to understand what the big vision is, what success looks like for you and your organization. And so really creating that foundation, right? Whether it be a federated model or your SMEs that you can tap into, but creating the model in which, yes, while you're the leader of the organization and you're setting the tone and setting the direction, you have trusted people who are subject matter experts in those areas to help you roll out your plan and create success across the board from business function to business function.
Yeah. Those are all, I think that's a good set of advice, and definitely knowing where you want to get to before you start and making sure you're measuring that along the way, I think is all really good advice for people who are going to be in a role like this. So thank you so much for joining today, sharing your experience and your story. So I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And for the audience, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews that we've done. Thank you.